Hello, world, and welcome back to another episode from Beyond the Matrix. My name is Sarah, and today we're going to be looking at Mercury because it's Wednesday and that is Mercury's day. So today is February 1st, rabbit, and Mercury is in Capricorn. Mercury's been in Capricorn for a while because Mercury retrograded in Capricorn. Mercury actually entered into Capricorn at the beginning of December, so sometime within the first week of December, and then began retrograde motion. So now Mercury is approaching the point at which he turned around. And he turned around just before meeting Pluto in the sky. This is Pluto here. So just before Mercury got to Pluto, Mercury turned around and went back. And it was also as Mercury was conjoining Venus. So Venus pulled ahead. Now she's long past Pluto and Saturn, and it's kind of, well, is in her exaltation. So she couldn't be more exalted. She couldn't be doing any better. So now it's Mercury's turn. And the thing about Mercury is he is the archetype of Hermes. He's the trickster god. He can play many characters. He is able to outwit the other characters. And so because this conjunction between Mercury and Pluto actually goes exact next week, I'm going to be reading about Hermes today as the archetype accompanying Dionysus. Because with this week leading us into the full moon in Leo, I mentioned Dionysus having visited me, this archetype, this essence, this thought, this God continues to come up in my consciousness in various different places. This is when you know something's trying to come through. This is how you become that channel. The pattern keeps coming up. So Dionysus is the god that is visiting me this lead up to the full moon. And because of that, and because Mercury's not making too many different aspects this week, other than with the moon, I'm going to describe the role of Hermes in the story of Dionysus as kind of a supporting character, which is what's so interesting about Hermes is he shows up in so many different myths, but he's always this supporting character. And yeah, I think that's just really descriptive of how Mercury works. First of all, it's so funny when you start a reading with a planet in a place where it's so obvious that you are speaking on it. For instance, here I have Mercury on the ascendant at the time that I started looking at this chart, and that kind of means Mercury's personality come forth. So now we're calling on Mercury, Hermes. So I'm going to read again from Classic Myths, which is by Barry B. Powell. And this is just a summary of the myth, so it's not a poetic reading again, unfortunately. The birth and early youth of Dionysus. Philandering Zeus fell in love with Semele, princess of the house of Thebes and daughter of the Phoenician immigrant king Cadmus. Zeus came to her disguised as a mortal man, and Semele was soon pregnant. Hera, Zeus's queen, inflamed with jealousy, cloaked herself in a dark mist and hurried to Semelé's door, disguised as an old woman. Her hair was all straggly and her skin furrowed with wrinkles. For a while, the two women chatted away. When Semele revealed her affair with Zeus, Hera suggested that his claim to be king of the gods might be a ruse. Perhaps he was an ordinary mortal who made up the story to bring Semele to his bed. The old woman departed and Semele began to doubt. When Zeus next came to visit, she asked for just one wish. Zeus swore by the underworld river Styx that he would give her anything she asked. Then come to me as you come in love to Hera, Semele demanded. Zeus's oath, sworn by Styx, could not be broken. Sorrowful yet true to his word, he appeared to her in all his glory. She was burned to ashes, but her unborn child was saved by Hermes's timely appearance. Hermes carried the fetus to Zeus, who slit open his thigh and sewed up the fetus within. 3 months later, Zeus removed the stitches and Dionysus was born again. For this reason, he was called the twice-born god. Zeus gave the child to Hermes, who carried him to Ino, queen of Orchomenus, the Bronze Age capital of northern Boeotia. As Thebes was capital of the south, Ino, Semele's sister and wife to the king, Athamas, plays an important part in other Greek myths. On Hermes' instruction, Ino disguised the divine child in girl's clothing, hoping to protect him from Hera's persecution. But vengeful Hera was not deceived, and she drove Ino and Athamas insane. Athamas shot one of his 2 sons, Laertius, mistaking him for a fawn or a lion cub. Ino seized the other son, Melicertes, and boiled him alive in a pot. In her madness, she ran, carrying the pot and the dead child, down to the sea and leaped into the Gulf of Corinth. She and the child were transformed into sea deities, saviors of the distressed mariners, including the legendary Odysseus. Ino's name was changed to Leucothea, the white goddess, and the dead Melicertes was resurrected as Palemon the wrestler. To save Dionysus from further persecution by Hera, Zeus changed the child into a young goat. In this form, Hermes delivered him to the nymphs of Nysa, a mountain in Thrace, or perhaps in the Far East India or Ethiopia. No one knew for sure. Okay, so I like to keep it on the same myth because I think the pattern can be drawn from this myth, however it's appropriate for your life. And I didn't actually read the myth itself, which I think is actually more helpful. I think that it's more helpful to read an excerpt and get to the original source text. That way, whatever archetypes, whatever memes come up for you is the message as it applies to your life in real time. So I hope that makes sense. I think that that's how this practice of reading the transits helps. And so that's why I want to stay on the myth of Dionysus and how Hermes fits into that. Okay, so that's Hermes in the myth of Dionysus. I think it's going to be interesting to watch how the energy of Mercury changes as he approaches Pluto. And by next week, we'll be talking about themes of death and Mercury or Hermes going through the underworld because he's going to meet up with Pluto. So the only other aspect besides aspects with the moon that's part of this lead up to Mercury approaching Pluto is a sextile to Neptune. And this sextile between Mercury and Neptune, there's an even greater heightened sense of intuition. And we might find that we're able to see these patterns that I'm talking about a lot easier, which will be helpful to navigate the underworld. So that's what we have this week with Mercury. Next week, it's going to get more intense, but this week, it's the supporting role of this full moon in Leo. And if you recall from the excerpt that I read, Hermes is the savior of Dionysus, his little brother. If it weren't for Hermes's quick action to deliver the fetus to Zeus, then Dionysus wouldn't have even been born. And even after he's born, Hermes aids in concealing him and safeguarding him, finding different people with whom Dionysus could live so that Hera would not continue to attack him. So take all of that into consideration, explore the myth even further for more insights. And until tomorrow, hope you enjoy the rest of your day.